A millionaire spotted an elderly couple under a tree in the rain, but opening their suitcase, he discovers something that makes his blood run cold. He was driving home when he saw two elderly people soaked and abandoned in the downpour at his gate. He almost drove past until he opened that old suitcase and learned a truth that would change his life forever. The rain hammered against the windshield of the imported car, as if trying to wash away all the world's grime. Michael adjusted his rearview mirror and accelerated down the empty avenue, exhausted after 3 days of endless meetings in another city. He was in his 40s. He had built a business empire that many envied. But that night, it weighed on his shoulders like an invisible burden. His mansion awaited him in the city's most prestigious district, silent and cold. As always, the automatic gates began to open as the sensor detected his approaching car. Michael slowed down, ready to pull into the covered garage, when something unusual caught his eye. Two figures were huddled under a century-old tree just outside the wall, trying to shelter from the storm that lashed the city. Frowning, he stopped the car and lowered the electric window to get a better look. They were a man and a woman, both with gray hair. Their clothes were stuck to their bodies with water. They were hugging each other as if it were the only protection left in the world. Next to them stood an old leather suitcase, propped against the tree trunk as if it held the last remnants of a collapsed life. Michael's first impulse was to hit the gas and go home. After all, it wasn't his problem that people were on the street. The city was full of those in need, and he couldn't solve everyone's problems. But something in the scene deeply affected him. Maybe it was the way the old man shielded the woman from the rain with his body, or how she clung to him with a trust that seemed to defy the world. Something inside Michael broke. He killed the engine, grabbed an umbrella from the back seat, and stepped out into the downpour. "Good evening," Michael said, raising his voice over the rain. "Are you okay?" The old man looked him over for a few moments, as if trying to decide whether this well-dressed man was a threat or a sign of hope. "We're fine, just waiting for the rain to pass." "Waiting where?" "Here, on the street. We have nowhere to go." The woman answered in a soft voice, full of a sorrow that seemed to come from afar. "We were evicted this morning, couldn't find a shelter. Our children have their own lives," he said finally. "We don't want to be a bother." Michael knew that kind of answer. It was dignity trying to mask rejection. "What are your names?" "I'm Anthony," he replied, extending a calloused but clean hand. "This is my wife, Hope. We've been married for almost 50 years. "I'm Michael," he introduced himself, shaking Anthony's hand. "Listen, you can't stay here in the rain all night. You can stay at my house tonight." The words escaped Michael's mouth before he could fully process what he was offering. Anthony and Hope exchanged a surprised look. Cautiously, Anthony helped Hope to her feet and picked up the leather suitcase. Michael noticed how he held the luggage as if he were carrying something more valuable than gold. The housekeeper, Valentina, almost dropped her tray of tea when she saw Michael walk through the front door with two drenched elderly people. "Valentina," Michael said, "prepare a guest room on the second floor for Anthony and Hope, and see if there are any dry clothes that will fit them." Anthony and Hope stood in the foyer, dripping water on the marble floor, clearly intimidated by the luxury around them. "Please, make yourselves at home," Michael said, though the phrase sounded strange even to him. The next morning, Michael came downstairs to find Anthony and Hope at the kitchen table. "Anthony," he said, "tell me about yourselves. How did you end up in this situation?" The old man took a deep breath. "I was a civil engineer. I worked for decades building schools, hospitals, orphanages, mostly social projects." "And what happened?" "Our only son, Edward, was always ashamed of what we did," Anthony continued, a bitter edge to his voice. "He said we were fools, wasting our time helping those who didn't deserve it. He became a successful lawyer, married into a wealthy family. They were ashamed of us. When Hope got sick," Anthony said, his voice dropping, "with a delicate heart condition, the treatments became very expensive. We lost the house. We called Edward, thinking he would help, just temporarily. And he did, Anthony laughed bitterly. He said we were adults responsible for our own choices, and if we chose to help strangers our whole lives instead of thinking about the future, we had to bear the consequences. Then he hung up. The words hung in the air. Michael felt something strange happening inside him. "May I see the suitcase you brought?" he asked, driven by a sudden curiosity. Hope brought the battered leather case to the table and opened it. Michael leaned in to see the contents and was left speechless. The suitcase was filled with photos, letters, newspaper clippings, and documents, all meticulously organized. "These are the children from our orphanages," Hope explained, pointing to hundreds of photos of smiling kids. "And these are graduation ceremonies from the schools I built," Anthony pointed to other photos. Michael picked up one of the letters. It was from a child, written in a youthful scrawl. "Dear Uncle Anthony and Aunt Hope, thank you for helping me when my mom was sick. You were my angels. One day I'll be rich and help children just like you helped me."
Creating an embarrassing situation for our family. "Embarrassing?" Hope asked, hurt. "Neighbors have been calling, saying you're begging on the street. It affects my professional reputation." "We weren't begging," Anthony defended himself. "We were just seeking shelter." "Who are you?" Edward asked Michael with ill-disguised contempt. "Michael Smith, the owner of this house where your parents found shelter when their own son abandoned them." The answer hit Edward like a slap. "My parents, my responsibility. I've already arranged a place for them in a specialized facility for the elderly." "A facility?" Michael exploded. "You want to lock up your own parents?" "Your parents are not going anywhere," Michael said firmly. "They are staying here, in my home, for as long as they wish." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Michael retorted, looking Edward straight in the eye. "I'm dealing with the people who saved my mother's life when I was 8 years old, the people who built the hospital where she was cured." The revelation stunned Edward. He stormed out, defeated, dragging his mortified wife, Pauline, with him. Later that day, the most shocking discovery of all came to light. 15 years ago, Anthony explained, a young businessman was on the brink of bankruptcy. His company was called Smith Construction. The coffee cup fell from Michael's hand. "That was my company." "We used our life savings to pay off your bank loans," Anthony said quietly. "We did it anonymously. We wanted you to believe you'd succeeded on your own. We were honoring a promise we made to your mother, Catherine. She asked us to look after you." Michael wept. His entire life, his success, was built on a lie. It was built on the sacrifice of these two angels who had given everything for him. Their story was far from over. Their grandson, Roman, arrived, having run away from home in disgust at his father's actions. He brought a terrifying revelation. Edward wasn't just after control, he was after a multi-million-dollar inheritance from their great-grandfather, lands that were now worth a fortune. Edward was planning to have his parents declared mentally incompetent to gain legal control. He had bribed doctors and was preparing a full-scale legal assault. The battle was just beginning. With the help of his lawyer, Dr.
Jean Murad, Michael, discovered the depth of Edward's scheme. But Anthony held the ultimate trump card, a secret second will made by his grandmother, bequeathing the valuable lands not to the men in the family, but to the one who truly dedicated their life to helping others. That person was Anthony. Edward, unaware of this second will, used a fraudulent court order to seize the original will from Anthony's safe deposit box. Just when all seemed lost, Hope remembered they had made a notarized copy 30 years ago, which they kept in their old leather suitcase. Armed with the copy, they faced Edward as he arrived with court officers and an ambulance, ready to forcibly commit his parents. When Michael presented the notarized copy of the secret will, Edward's plan crumbled. His wife, Pauline, arrived, announced she was filing for divorce and vowed to testify against him. Defeated and exposed, Edward faced criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy. 6 months later, the mansion was no longer a cold house, but a warm home. Using the inheritance, Michael, along with Anthony and Hope, founded Hope Village, the largest relief community in the country, with homes for underprivileged families, a school, a hospital, and a cultural center. Roman, now an architecture student, helped design it. Pauline found new happiness with a kind doctor. Edward, from prison, sent a letter begging for forgiveness. The family visited him and, with love, offered him the gift of a second chance. A year later, Hope Village held its grand opening. Thousands attended. Edward, released from prison, was now coordinating social projects within the village. A changed man. "My whole life, I searched for success in the wrong places," he said publicly. "Today, I understand that my parents were always the richest people I knew. Rich in love, in purpose, in a true legacy." That evening, as the new unconventional family gathered in Michael's home, now filled with laughter, music, and love, he looked at the two elderly people he had found shivering in the rain. They had not only changed his life, but the lives of thousands. The lesson was complete. True wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touch, the smiles you create, and the hope you restore. The family he had found was not built by blood, but by the choice to love unconditionally, forgive without limits, and help without expecting anything in return. Thank you for listening to this story until the end. Don't forget to leave your opinion on this story, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your friends and family. It motivates us to continue working on new stories. Don't miss the next amazing story that is about to appear on your screen. We're very grateful that you are with us. In the description below this video, you can find a catalog of all our stories. See you next time.